So in my time on this earth, I've gotten into some pretty crazy corners of reality, some schools of thought that are a little fringe, but that's just how I roll. Um, One of the fringe theories I've gotten into was, what was it? It was Republic, the Republic for the United States of America, and all that was like, it was like pretty much a branch off of the free man on the land movement. Pretty much, so around 2009, 2010, is just like, I'm sick of all this bullshit and bills and jobs and shit, and apparently a bunch of other people were sick of that shit too. And by then, so I'm like, 20, we'll say around 2010, and so I'm like that age, and there's all these guys like 60, 50 years old that are like really taking the movement serious, like trying to live off grid and stuff, and they're like really living it, off grid everything, power sources and everything. And one of the aspects of the whole movement was traveling, right? Because you got to have a driver's license. So, but then again, so there's this theory that these, like, that the fringe movements have, that driving licenses, any kind of license, marriage license, professional license that a state government gives out, that those licenses are contracts, they're commercial contracts, and pretty much you have the right to travel freely. Apparently, there's like Supreme Court rulings that say you don't need a driver's license to be able to use your car on the roads. It goes in really deep. So, so I was really into that, and I thought it was so cool, you know what I mean? It's like, was there another layer of, like, sovereignty above the layer I've been operating out of my whole life, It's like, it's really cool to think about. And so, I got a ticket. In Memphis is what happened. So I got a ticket. It was like a 5-lane road with a turn lane in the middle, 2 one-ways on each side. And so a bus on the other side of the road stopped and put its light up. And so I was like, dude, there's no kids crossing this huge-ass road, So everyone was stopping on the opposite side, which I was on. And I decided to keep going. Anyways, a cop pulls me over, gets me a ticket. I'm like, dude, there's like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that, the whole fucking, maybe it does. Maybe the whole road has to stop, but that's ridiculous. There's no kids going to be crossing a 5-lane road, right? Anyway, so I get into court, and I've done a lot of research at this point. I've done a lot of YouTube and a lot of video watching about how the hell this goes down, right? And so I get in there, and one of the techniques is don't claim the name. And so I get up to the little check-in counter. They're taking everyone's names. They're like, what's your name? I'm like, Garrett Paul. And I give them my proper name. So the proper name is the first and middle name. And then the last name is a family name. The last name was given to you by your profession that you worked in order. The king gave out the last names. The king gave out the last names to show like what your family did or where they were located. And all of this was just to collect taxes, to have a filing cabinet that they could make sure it's like, all right, because before all the documents for the government, birth certificates and stuff like that, marriages, deaths, and births were all they were recorded in family Bibles. And so family Bibles had witnesses in them too, and there are Bibles that you pass from generation to generation, and they would have all that information in it, right? And they're considered legal documents now. But then around like the early like 1900s, the federal government started to get into like, you have to get a marriage license. Back in the old days, my grandparents had to give a blood test in order to get a marriage license to make sure that they weren't diseased or they weren't inbred, they weren't like related. So they were from Appalachia, Kentucky. And so they had to give blood tests back in the days. And imagine getting denied you don't even need a marriage license. You really don't need, because that's really just commerce. It's business. I've gotten off on a tangent here. But, yeah, licenses and stuff really are kind of just, you can use it to your benefit. They're all made for our benefit. But, the truth is we all have, just the source earth to work with. We're all here. Anyways, so let me get back to going to court. I go into court. They're like, what's your name? And I'll say I'm Garrett Paul of the Meade family. And so they're like, what? What'd you just say? I said, I'm Garrett Paul of the Meade family. And so they're like, are you Garrett Meade? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, well, I'm here for Garrett Meade, but I'm Garrett Paul of the Meade family. I'm here to represent that name on the paper. And they kept on asking me, they're like, are you Garrett Meade? And I'm like, no, I'm not Garrett Meade, but I'm Garrett Paul of the Meade family. And so I did that like 3 times. And they kept on kicking my thing down a month later. They're like, just come back in a month and get Garrett here. And so they're like, all right. And so I go out and I eventually claim the name. I'm like, all right, yeah, sure. This is, I'll claim the name. And I'm like, yeah, I'm the guy. That's me. I'm on the paper. And I'm the only guy going to trial. Everyone's just paying out the fine. I go into trial, and I'm like, well, the judge is like pretty much just starting up whatever this thing is. I'm like, I tell him, I'm like, for record, I just want to note that I do not consent to any of this. I made a record. The judge got all pissed off. Some lady, she's yelling at me and stuff, and kicked me out of the courtroom. But security guard came to the door, and he's like, yeah, she just missed it. Just get out of here. I was like, sweet. So that happened. I don't know. But then I got a speeding ticket out, and pretty sure I didn't pay that either. I got a speeding ticket out in the suburbs out that way, and I told the judge the same thing, and he kicked me out of the courtroom, and I don't remember paying that one. I might have, but I know he kicked me out of the courtroom, but I didn't ever get any points or anything on my license. I forgot exactly. That one was a little more intense. But yeah, that's my experience with it. But now, honestly, the best option is usually just paying the fine. And there's this so when I was going down the rabbit holes back in the day, there's this thing called Creditors in Commerce. You can probably find all their videos. And it was just that was the first thing I ever saw. And I watched probably about 12 or 20 of the guy's videos. And it kind of gave me opened up. That was the very first thing I found where it was telling you how the system is set up. Pretty much how the matrix, this thing that we operate in every day. It's literally, it is a matrix that we operate in every day. But we've gotten to the point where we just know this is regular life, If you went back 100 years, the people would have a different philosophy on everything. But when you're raised inside this thing, where you're given a social security number and an identity and all these things, you just take it for granted, But there's plenty of people throughout in the world that don't understand, don't have the benefits that we do. These things that I'm talking about, what is a good name for these things? Just this imagination. It's real. Law is real, right? Law is real. We can't see it, but it affects the things we do, and all this is based out of law too. And it's made for our benefit. That's what I've learned. It makes life a lot easier. Things are a lot. My impression is that this whole credit system and the monetary system we're on now is pretty much just run it. And with credit, you get to go to places that you would never go to before, Credit gives you real